Welcome everyone to the Nordic Championship, and I have actually made it to Sweden after 22 hours of being stuck in airports and Jake metaphorically and also physically phoning in to be there for me. I've actually managed to make it to Sweden. Now, Dan is going to be supporting me. I have unfortunately picked up a horrible cold, but I am really excited to be part of the Nordic Championship finally. I've been following regional League of Legends for years now, like just years and years and years, and I've always loved watching the Nordics. I've loved seeing the Nordics perform. They've got, obviously, the breeding ground for some of the best individual players we've ever had in League of Legends.
Yep.
So I'm really, really happy to be part of the Nordics finally, and this is my first broadcast. I'm really excited to see the teams.
Nice shirt.
I know. I don't know if I wasn't going to say anything, Dan. I was just going to let the audience understand, but me and Dan are matching because we just wanted this to be a special occasion.
Yep.
And you've gone for the blue and I've gone for the red, so there you go.
Yeah, it looks good.
How are you anyway? Tell me about what it's been like being part of the Nordic scene, because it's a huge honor for me to sort of step into this.
I mean, I came in, I'm like looking at the teams, I'm like, yeah, I have a pretty good read on where I think these teams are going to be. There's a lot of feedback from the community as well. You know, Nordavind looking like strong contenders, and it's just been chaotic. I've loved it, but it feels like every team goes into every match trying to bring some new strategy that's going to win it. We've had a lot of upsets. We've had Nordavind looking rough, despite like having such a stacked roster on paper. Singularity looking really on form. Hillerod bounced back yesterday. And then the likes of Dusty, who have basically won every single game they've played, and then somehow they're 1-2 because just at the last minute they managed to turn it around.
I've been following on social media, and I've just been watching what kind of a lot of the commentators in the Nordic scene have been saying, and it seems like so far we've had quite a few upsets.
Yeah.
It hasn't really been like the UK scene where we've just seen the academies do the academy things. We've seen some real upsets in the Nordics so far.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think always having the upsets and always having every team wanting to sort of compete. Every game matters, and every player is trying to pull out all the stops to sort of get to that point. And I think even the teams that are struggling, Atlando being 0-3 in their score so far, they've still tried to put on a show, and they've still tried to bring like the picks that sort of represent them. Jolbu on the Lee Sin, yes, he had a rough game yesterday, but he still had a pretty amazing sort of insect setup on week one, and it's great to see.
I think we've actually got the standings we can bring up so we can talk about where people are. Team Singularity, for me, even my first time in the Nordics, no surprise to me, they're a big Nordic organization, 3-0, they've been playing really well. But what is surprising is Nordavind down in 1-2 right now. Given all the hype that this roster had, they seem to be underperforming ever so slightly.
And they very really could have been 0-3. The game against Dusty that they won, their nexus was exposed. There was 3 inhibitors down, and the game essentially was over, but Dusty just kind of pulled the trigger a bit too fast and ended up losing it. And I think it shows that the games are by inches. We had so many really close ones. The Singularity Nordavind match was such a good one. And then Bifrost being 2-1, but have had to fight their way there with some really close matches that could have gone the other direction. I think that's a big thing. Best of one, obviously, there's a lot of potential for upsets, and these games are coming down to the wire.
I'm actually really excited to dive into the games today, because someone who has kind of been part of the UK scene for so long, but obviously never having really played in the Nordics, there's lots of familiar faces across a lot of these teams for me. People like Krogson, who I haven't seen in a while. Chrisberg, you've got Denvoxne, who I can't never pronounce that. Denvoxne?
Yeah, Denvoxne.
Denvoxne. He played in the UK scene last
Hidden
split,
as well. Both of them coming from Demise straight over here.
It's awesome. So
they actually did a swap because Kalera, who is on the Vipers roster, he's gone over to Demise for this split in the UK. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the games, let's take a look at which ones we've got coming your way. We're going to be kicking things off with Nordavind versus Atlando, Dusty then versus Bifrost, Team Singularity versus Hillerod, and Vipers taking on Hybrid to round the day out. Any matches here that you think will be particularly close and that we need to keep our eyes on?
I think Dusty against Bifrost should be a really close one. Bifrost have brought in some interesting drafts. They had sort of a protector 80 carry sort of thing going on. They had this composition playing heavily around the Vigar up against a melee composition. And Dusty have shown a lot of drafting strength. It's really just at the final moments where they lose the game. So I think that one's going to be an interesting one. I think the drafting is going to be sort of a big battle that could decide the game. I do think also that Hillerod against Singularity. Singularity undefeated so far, looking very good. But Hillerod, they bounced back. Their game yesterday, coming into it, I thought that they would continue the 0-3 score, but they drafted a really strong composition, and it was very easy to execute. So I had a lot of praise to give to them regarding that. And I think if they go into the Singularity match with a similar, easy to execute team composition that counteracts the enemy's sort of picks, I think they have a good shot.
Well, let's take a focus on the first matchup of the day. Then we're going to have Nordavind versus Atlando. Now, Nordavind, in my eyes, need this win. Now, Atlando, I think, are arguably, not even arguably, probably the weakest team in the league right now. They're the only team that hasn't got a win to their name. Nordavind need this.
Yeah. I think Nordavind definitely on a sort of downward trajectory. It hasn't looked good. And yes, they had a very difficult week 1 schedule up against Dusty and Singularity, but losing yesterday to Hillerod shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't have happened on paper. Draft was a massive factor. And I think also not having their starting support, Advian, who they do have today, is a big thing. Atlando, it is still an uphill battle. But if they're going to beat Nordavind in their current form is the current opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Because I expect this team will inevitably bounce back. Their roster is pretty stacked. This should be the starting point. This is the game where you go, right, Atlando is 0-3. We have a strong performance, get our confidence boosted up, and start to go on that upward trajectory. But if they lose this game, it's really going to be concerning.
So talk to me a little bit as we go through draft about Atlando. I briefly, if Atlando are going to win, where do they win? So
I think Jolbu has had moments where he looks good, but consistency has plagued him. And it's like, if he can get his early game going and find momentum, I'm confident in him. But he's often struggled to do that. Interesting to see they've actually subbed out Jacob, their usual mid laner, for face hurt. But talking again about the sort of key points of the roster, Andreas, he has sometimes had a limited champion pool in some regards. There was a Vlad game, which is a pick for him, but it didn't really get going. But I think his laning is solid, and if he can get on a pick that can sort of have momentum in the later stages of the game, that can be a potential win condition, especially when Wazor, he's been solid, but there has been some moments where he's looked a bit shaky.
I'm looking at Nordavind's roster, and I'm seeing so many recognizable names as well. I mean, this is a roster that's seemingly stacked with individual talent that should perform, like Aesthetic.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was huge when he played in Spain. Chrisberg, probably the most well-known Nordic player currently playing across the European regional leagues in terms of European Masters prevalence and kind of...
Yeah.
I mean, specifically coming from Nordic teams, you know.
Yeah.
You have Vazor, who has been around for ages, and obviously the Niter, who's come in as a really big prospect in the mid lane.
Yeah, and my big concern is for Aesthetic and Niter, because on paper, these two should be such a strong duo, but they just haven't been performing yet.
Okay, so Rumble first pick comes through immediately, I'm assuming for Vazor. I guess there is some flexibility there.
Yeah, it's been a strong flex, and I think that's why it's drawn a lot of bans, and the fact that you can put it mid, run Predator, and it can be a roaming powerhouse. With the emphasis on team fighting in the current meta, it's super valuable, and I really like the Jarvan as an answer, because you do not want to let them pick Jarvan and Rumble. They're actually going to go for the Varus here, but I think you have to take the Jarvan. You cannot let that combo go through, especially when you want to play Varus yourselves. It's interesting though, because Senna still available, Aphelios still available, but those two picks a little bit dangerous up against Jarvan, and especially Tom Kench no longer on the table in the bans. So there could be some concerns around that. Yeah,
speaking of the bans, it was Lucian, Gragas, and Leona for Nordavind, and Atlando went with Syndra, Tom Kench, and Akali. We'll see exactly what Nordavind locking on this first rotation. It's going to be the Lee Sin, so that I guess assumes we're going to see Rumble in one of the two solo lanes here. What would you be looking to round out this first phase of the draft with?
I think it's risky to go for an AD carry because you can potentially get your support targeted away. A Thresh could be okay. Advian is really good on it, and it means whatever AD carry you pick up, there's an element of safety to get outside the Cataclysm, but it looks like for now the priority is going to be on the Marksman. Crispy getting the Xayah, it does have an element of safety, but the concern against the Jarvan is once you're in that Cataclysm, the Featherstorm doesn't get you outside of it.
Yeah, but maybe they're just saying, I need an AD carry that's going to have some guaranteed safety.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick the Xayah in case some of those AD carries get taken away. We'll see exactly what Atlando respond with. They've already got the Jarvan and the Varus. They are thinking about the Rakan. Would Rakan be a good pick in your eyes? Well, it is. That's what they've gone for.
It's okay. I feel like the fact that you can ban away picks and Leona already being off the card puts it in a good situation. The mobility is nice as well. It often provides another element of engage to set up the Jarvan. Braum is the standard one to be put in tandem with the Varus, but Braum isn't very effective against either a Rumble or a Lee Sin. There's not much you can do to stop them targeting your AD carry, so it makes sense in that regard. Bans coming in through pretty fast. The Soraka makes sense as being a power pick, as has a set, but the Thresh, this is something I talked about. Taking it away as a pick for Nordavind, it's something that works really well against a Jarvan. Not only can you interrupt his flag and drag combo, but you can also use the Lantern just to get your AD carry out of dodge if he's in that Cataclysm. So for Nordavind, they still have to keep things open with regards to their support pick, but Atlando, not going to be able to pick up the Mordekaiser, and They have options here. They can either go for a blind mid or a blind top laner.
Yeah.
There's still quite a few top laners open who you could take safely in the situation. Gangplank is a big one on the cards. We've seen a lot of Aatrox recently. There are counters to it, but depends how confident.
Well, you know that
Andreas
Rumble is
feels.
going to be somewhere in one of those two lanes.
In one of
right?
those solo lanes. So looks like leaning towards the Aatrox, and it's a lot of team fighting potential, and also it's pretty strong into a lot of matchups. There are specific counters, but I mean the big ones are like Fiora, who you have to very much play the comp around here. And right now, Nordavind with a Rumble, likely looking more to base around team fighting. So we're going to see a support come in for Nordavind. Nautilus is okay into the...
What would Braum look like here?
Braum, I mean, the problem with Braum is that against the Varus, you're never going to stun him.
Sure.
There's just never going to be a situation when you layer that in. Whereas with the Nautilus, if you land your hook onto him, it's very easy for the Xayah to set up the feathers and find kill potential. And also, it threatens Varus massively.
How would you round this out then? If you've got the Nautilus, you're going to assume that that's going to be, well, I was going to say Rumble top, but actually it looks like with some thought going in here, Nordavind could be looking at a Rumble mid.
I prefer the Rumble mid, to be honest, in the current meta. It gives really strong priority in the matchup. It can take trades well because of the scrap shield. And then a good roam potential. I really like the Gangplank.
It still throws questions up, right? The Gangplank still throws questions up. Like, you could put Gangplank mid.
Technically, you could still flex it, but it's a decent matchup into the Aatrox, and then it also has the option of the Equalizer combined with the Cannon Barrage makes it very hard for Thor to play team fights. Seeing an Aurelion Sol as a pocket pick coming out for face hit, so something that can match the roaming off the Rumble, and also in those long-term trades where the Flame Spitter for Rumble usually wins out, you might struggle into the Aurelion Sol.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, we don't see too much Aurelion Sol. Usually it is a pocket pick for mid laners that have that as a kind of I guess I literally just said pocket pick. It's literally a pocket pick,
Yeah.
you know, for some mid laners, right? So I guess that coming out here. Let's have a look at these compositions then. Like, we've got our compositions locked in, Nordavind and Atlando. Tell me very briefly before we jump into game, what each of these compositions are designed to do.
So I think for Nordavind, they have a pretty strong aggressive jungler and a mid laner who can often find priority. If they set up mid lane to have a strong element of control, they can look to apply pressure bot lane. You have Gangplank, who is perfect for playing on a weak side. On the other side, it's honestly a similar situation. You want to free up the mid laner to roam and affect the rest of the map. I do feel like the team fighting is going to be a little bit easier for the side of Nordavind. So Atlando, they need to focus mid a lot. This Aurelion Sol needs to start to take over the map. That's going to be a massive win condition in this matchup, and it's going to come down to how well Facer can play. They have subbed him in, but Aurelion Sol, it's not necessarily how well you do 1v1, it's how well you can roam.
Do you just think that when it comes to, you talked about ease of execution yesterday, do you think when you're just running a composition like Nordavind, it's just pretty easy? You know you're playing around a Rumble R, you know you just need to group up and make that work?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I think in terms of 1-3-1, you're not really going to be threatened by the Aurelion Sol. He doesn't have TP, and even if he did, he's not the best split pusher. And I think you just keep Gangplank in the side lane, you focus your bot. Crispig's hard to threaten because he has that the Featherstorm.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, when you want to start a team fight, you find someone isolated without mobility, you throw down the Cannon Barrage, you throw down the Equalizer. It's very easy for Lee Sin and Nautilus to walk up on that, and I feel like anyone who is caught out will die extremely fast.
I always think about these comps when we're diving into game, by the way. We are just heading on to Summoner's Rift for this first game of the Nordic Championship Day 2. But what I think when it comes to these compositions, I think like when it's easier to execute, you reduce human error.
Yeah.
So when you've got something like Gangplank R, Rumble R, and you have the safety of a Xayah, suddenly everything becomes a lot easier to execute on. And I think I'm definitely leaning towards Nordavind having a strong draft coming out here, just because very little can go wrong. If you play it correctly and don't make too many mistakes in the laning phase, very little can go wrong when it comes to team fighting.
Yeah, I think this is again a game where Atlando are looking towards their mid-jungle duo to try and find success, because if you free up that Aurelion Sol in mid lane, given the vision control to move, he can impact the rest of the map. Now for Nordavind, they struggled yesterday because the enemy team had a composition that played itself. All you have to do is just look at the Varus and focus him down. They've put themselves in that situation here. It's so hard for Thor to ever play team fights because of just the AoE ult you can throw down from a long distance. So I think Nordavind have learned. They've picked up from yesterday, and Atlando, we need Jolbu to have the game of his life if they're going to be successful here.
Yeah, I think we're looking at Jolbu being the primary driving force, like you said, for Orlando. We're looking at Facehurt to really shine versus Nita on this Rumble mid. And actually, I'm looking at Nita. I want to see Nita step up to the plate. There were questions raised about his performances maybe over the last few games. Nita has been touted as a really standout piece of talent in the... Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've just been given some tissues because I am actually dying. Naita, I'm really, really excited to see him step up. You know, I think this is the game to really get back on the horse for Nordavind and put yourselves back in running for the top end of the table here in the Nordic League.
Yeah, a little bit of a scuff coming in from Advian, but he won't be punished too hard. But yeah, I think Naita, a lot of people were talking. He was playing trials and scrims in the preseason before getting signed to a team, and a lot of people had a ton of praise for him. I know there was some UK rosters wanting to pick him up, but hold that thought. Jelbu's looking for a level 2 gank.
Oh, Vezor immediately flashes. I'm not sure on the flash on Jelbu that I think he was looking to try and get the flash knock up on the Java and just didn't quite execute it properly. I mean, look, this is good. This is good from Aesthetic, right? He's immediately said, okay, right, now I strike.
Yeah, it's disappointing from Jelbu because the gank, great concept. You burn the flash from the gangplank, it threatens him later, and if you bring numbers there, you can dive him. But you are never going to kill gangplank even if you follow him with the knockup because Aatrox was level 1 and not in range to hit anything. I think it's one of those things where you see the highlight play, you want to make it, it doesn't pay off, and overall, it's just a trade of summoners. But it still does mean that Vezor can be threatened, has to be cautious if they start to bring more numbers there. But for now, both junglers going to move towards the bot side of the map and just start clearing up there. We can see Groupstage and Advian got a lot of priority, so that does mean that they can now move with Aesthetic and try and get control of this bot side river. Nightus already started to move up in tandem, and Advian a little bit off with these hooks. We did see him have a break yesterday, wasn't playing, Svenny was there as well, but now they're going for an invade on Jelbu, and he's no flash, and he's low. Yeah,
well, this is exactly what Aesthetic is looking for. He lands the Q, gets the first blood, easy as you like, and as we just said, once you see Jarvan go top at level 2, you know where he's going to path to immediately afterwards. Aesthetic read him like a book. I actually thought he was going to go more aggressive than that straight away, but I think he held on to that really nicely. Jumps in onto Facer. He's going to have to dive away here. That's a good piece of tanking, though, from Naita to make sure Aesthetic gets out. A little bit over-aggressive, but he's sending a message, Orcs.
Yeah, he was looking for a potential play, but the stun came in. Facer does also have exhaust, so I feel like a dive would have really been rough there, but either way, Aesthetic knows his limits, backs away, and it was a good first blood onto Jelbu, and this is the cost of using his flash in that situation. He was caught with his pants down in the jungle, and he ends up paying for it.
What can you do? I think there was, again, it was an ambitious attempt to try and put Gangplank on the back foot, but all you've served to do is give away, so actually now a pretty sort of free lane, I guess, in terms of, are you going to have to go back there? And if Aesthetic matches you, then you're going to be in a rough spot, and immediately Jelbu forced out, and will lose the Rivet Scuttler as well.
Yeah, and Joel having a rough game so far. Aesthetic reading him so well, constantly matching on the map. And Vezor, I'm loving the priority achieved by Nordavind to then translate into pressure. So as soon as they see an opportunity for Aesthetic to go aggressive, they move out from their lanes to assist him. Now, Jelbu's showing up mid, essentially just to try and push this wave in, but this could be very costly. Aesthetic's here and Facer's low.
Aesthetic is here, Facer is low, forces the flash immediately, and Aesthetic jumps out.
Oh,
super close though.
That ward hop buffer, he was stunned and it still went through. If he'd been a split second later, he would have been stunned up under tower and could have potentially died. But overall, Aesthetic again having a really solid game, and I've criticized him because there's been some rough performances previously, but he's looking really on form here, and Naita as well, holding up well in the 1v1 in this matchup. One of the big things with Rumble is no mana cost, so he was very easily just to keep shoving where Facer couldn't keep up. And he now TP's in mid, because he's there at the wave first, he can find priority, and if Aesthetic wants to go aggressive again, his mid lane is going to be able to follow.
Vezor's been doing a really good job of holding his own versus Aatrox. It can be a tough matchup, but again, like we said, Jelbu coming there so early just meant there was so many levels that he probably wasn't going to be threatened in, unless Jelbu wanted to give away a load of his jungle farm. He is heading back towards the top lane now that Andreas is level 5. But again, Aesthetic there, ready to counteract. He's been so good at just trying to read that pathing of Jelbu and making sure he's there at all times.
Yeah, the shove from Knight was a little bit early and the wave has bounced back. So Facer was threatening a roam there, but it won't come through. Gangplank going to TP top to catch this wave. Not too big of a concern because he will have that cannon barrage soon. But for now, we're finally seeing Facer able to leave the lane. He's put some vision down. And often the first roam can set you up for the following roam. You clear out the vision, and then you go back, you shove the wave in again, and then you're free to move without being spotted. And the ideal is that you get down towards bot lane when they're pushing out, when they're overextended. But Groupstage and Advian playing pretty respectful just in front of the tower. Not really much you can do to threaten. If Thor and Fred can shove this wave in, though, it will bounce. But they're being threatened.
Advian goes for the hook, finally lands one onto Fred, who immediately dives away. A Gangplank ultimate comes through, and immediately the flash comes in from Advian. They're jumping straight through The Sonic Wave won't land. I think...
Rumble ult.
Yeah, Rumble ult might not do enough, though. I think they're just going to back off, maybe get some plates off the back of this just by threatening. It was a very forced engage that was very telegraphed, and unfortunately, Nordavind just couldn't execute on it.
Yeah, there was a ton invested there, and you could tell they wanted to make the play work, but it was just too difficult. They will be rewarded, however. They got the flash from Thor, and they're starting this dragon, but Jolbu's coming down. He does actually now have numbers advantage. Nordavind's bot lane reset. So
they could just go straight for this Inferno, which could definitely be on the cards, especially with the Rumble ultimate down.
I think they just want the Scuttle. They don't want Aesthetic to start it up again. They've got the Scuttle to secure an element of vision in the river, and then they back off, respecting the engage potential that could come out from that Lee Sin. Things will go back to a little bit of a slow pace, but big thing to take away from that Thor, now flashless on this Varus. If they go for a repeat attempt at that play, he will likely go down.
Absolutely.
Because even with a flash, he still got to a low amount of HP.
Advian has also lost his flash, however. I mean, really does come down to Jolbu. Jolbu's going to be having to read some of these ganks coming out from Aesthetic as well. Just taking a look at Vazor now again. He's managed to keep himself in a very healthy position versus this Aatrox. Hasn't given anything away despite losing his flash early on, and now has his flash back. So really that level 2 gank served very little for Atlando. And actually Jolbu, who's done pretty much nothing since then, apart from counteracting that dragon that Aesthetic tried to start up. There really has not been that much pressure on the map from Jolbu so far.
But he will hit that level 6. That Cataclysm can be a big tool. There is a flash unavailable for Advian, so if he looks towards bot lane, can be punished. Right now he's clearing up his red, but could path down if he wants to. And again, mid lane, you constantly see them moving, trying to secure vision control. If you look at the minimap, or just the bot side of the river in general, there's so much vision picked up for Nordavind. You can see all these control wards available, all these yellow wards just fanning out. And it means it's very easy if Naito wants to move down. There is still a control ward for Atlando in the Pixel Bush, but as soon as that's cleared, the protection offered to Atlando's bot lane is going to be limited.
Yeah, something that I was about to mention before all this vision went down was how well Atlando had controlled the vision game for the first part of this matchup. But honestly, Nordavind has responded just at the right time as well. Maybe when they're looking to make something happen bot, they're going to want to try and rotate and secure that Infernal Dragon pretty quickly. But honestly, Facehurt, every time it looks like Naito is stepping out or Facehurt wants to find an opportunity, he's there ready to roam as well. And that's why that Aurelion Soul was picked, just to be able to make sure he can match the roams coming out from Nordavind towards the bot side of the map especially.
Do you see Aesthetic invading now for this blue buff? This has been read to a degree, I believe. Well, at least Jolbu will walk in and see them. The rest of the team looking to respond. A fight could end up breaking out in this situation, but it looks like Nordavind's bot lane has priority, but a faster route for Atlando. Fortunately, cannot catch Aesthetic. He gets the blue and gets away, and that's a big thing to deny from Face here, because the priority in mid lane is super important. Who can get the push, who can get the shove on the wave. Naito isn't limited by his mana pool, whereas Facehurt is, so denying that, definitely a big factor.
You're going to set up with the River Scuttler as well, which will allow them to be a bit more aggressive as they push back down towards that bot. At least maybe trying to group around, yeah, they're just going to group around the Infernal here. They're basically going to say, fight us. We have a lot of our key ultimates up. We have a small level advantage, or at least they did at Jolbu is now level 6. We jump straight in onto the backline. They're going to get some big knocks up as now Chris Berg is forced to use his ultimate, but he's right in the middle of the entire Atlando team, and Atlando will pounce with that teleport coming in from Andreas. Well timed, and they will pick up the Infernal Drake too.
And I just don't know what Nordavind are going for. I think Aesthetic might try for a steal here. Like, he would lose his life if he goes for it, but Jolbu will block, they'll get it, and just really solid team fight from Atlando. I mean, the big thing here was the TP advantage for Andreas. Yes, the Cannon Barrage can come in. That is very different from having an Aatrox join the team fight, and even though the equalizer was good, it just wasn't enough to keep the momentum going in Nordavind's favor. Atlando
is classic
delivering.
blue side around the Dragon Pit, a bit like red side around the Baron Pit. You moved in as the blue side team, and you split your comp naturally because of the terrain. So your AD carry moving up from bot lane easily pincered because they came in through the blue buff area. So immediately you have your AD carry and support just below the Dragon Pit.
Oh.
Be careful here,
yeah,
Thor.
You can continue. Sorry, Thor was just nearly...
No, I definitely had to keep my eyes on that. You know, look at where Aesthetic is on the map right now. That's obviously where Advian and Chris Berg were moving up. Then, when you have the entrance to the blue buff, it's so easy with the Java to just come in and isolate Chris Berg and Advian.
You saw a great Cataclysm from him as well. It trapped Naito and Chris Berg in it, and then the Aurelion Sol followed up with the ultimate into the stun, and they were able to do very little. Niter did get his ultimate off, as did Chrisberg, but they were still trapped into that Cataclysm. Niter was CC chains, didn't even get to use Flash, and it was just a well-executed team fight from Atlando. And considering we talked about ease of execution for Nordavind, they took a fight that they weren't easily going to win.
I think they just overestimated their strength. They maybe didn't think about the teleport advantage that they had with Vasor's teleport, I think only just about to come off cooldown. I don't think they had the thought about the teleport advantage that Andreas had. And also Andreas is actually now, in a really solid spot in the mid game. They're going to see the Rift Herald started up here. Nordavind are going to respond, as is Jolbu. Jolbu has been pretty good when it's come to more of these sort of early to mid-game skirmishes, but I think they're just going to give it up. They have the support roam coming.
This is an interesting thing that I've seen from Nordavind, considering the sort of players of the caliber that are on this roster. They repeatedly don't swap to the top side of the map when Dragon's being taken. So usually you see a lot of teams, Dragon goes down, they instantly move their bot lane to the other side, so they have a numbers advantage for the Herald. Nordavind frequently don't do this. When Engage comes in,
Chrisberg is absolutely done. And I think Advia might be so close. The flash comes in from Facer, and now Aesthetic trying to get at least one return kill here, and he will find it. But again, you're seeing the problems with even just Xayah versus Jarvan once that ultimate is down, and the ultimate only buys you time, of course.
Yeah, and it only just came up. This is the nerfs that Xayah received when she was a dominant force in the meta. They nerfed the cooldown her ultimate, and in that situation, Chrisberg didn't have it available. Really good engages coming out from Atlando. I'm liking the aggression, honestly. Jolbu, he's looked so good right now.
What does this mean for Nordavind, though? I mean, if Nordavind lose this game, a team of with this caliber of players in the Nordic League, it's crazy, right?
Because I think individually they're obviously really strong, but it just feels like they're not coordinating as a team. They're taking fights they don't need to, and they're missing out basic sort of things that other teams are doing well. Not swapping their bot lane to the top side is a standard thing they're not doing, and it just feels like that fight was forced because Chrisberg and Adrian just overextended the lane. These are basic things you should be respecting, and it just feels like they're not. It's like they have this air of we are so good, we don't need to play the game out safely, and it backfires so often.
Let's not over-egg the lead that Atlando have right now.
Yeah.
It's 300 gold. So Nordavind have done a great job of maintaining good CS advantages, and they've kept the CS to a competitive level in the top side of the map. I think they've picked up more plates overall than Atlando has in the first 14 minutes of this game. So I don't want to over-egg how far ahead Atlando are, because they're not actually that far ahead in terms of gold value.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, I guess, execution-wise, Atlando are looking really solid.
And it's just, if you said to me at the start of the split, Atlando, even if Nordavind win this game, Atlando to be at this kill lead with a gold lead at 15 minutes, I'd think that you're making it up. But Nordavind really not on their prime form, representing their players' strength. In Atlando, this could be the bounce back game for now. Dragon coming up soon, so they're trying to find control of the river. Jolbu's looking again.
Good little dodge there by Niter. Keeps himself safe as Jolbo was looking to execute, but I think it would have been difficult to lock him down. He had the flash anyway. But Niter keeping hold of that was a really nice little 1-2. You're going to see a rotation towards bot lane. Chrisberg is going to be the target. They jump into Advian here. I don't know if Nordavind are going to be in the space to respond. Chrisberg with a really, really good ultimate, but he's going to get stunned up immediately. And again, he's just been constantly battered. I think that was a mistake, though, coming from Jolbo. He didn't get the EQ combo, and suddenly Aesthetic comes in, looking for a sideline flank as Fred, with the quickness, just warding Nordavind away. And immediately they go back in. There is the Rumble ultimate, cutting things away, and Advian gets the first kill of the team fight. Andreas coming down as well, but Aesthetic is not done yet. Jumps. He just gets blown up. And that's going to be a 1-for-1 at the end of the day.
And this means Nordavind can't go for the Dragon. They don't have the jungler available, so they won't risk it. I think Atlando a little bit over-aggressive there. Andreas didn't have TP and had to walk down, so you really shouldn't have gone before he was ready. They obviously try to look for a pick on a Chrisberg, whose flash just came up at the end of that play, but it was overzealous, and they paid for it. They burned a lot of ultimates. But even with how that went, they still only traded 1-for-1. Despite the fact Nordavind looked to turn that round, they didn't really get that much from it. So now, both teams going to reset and get back on the map, and it's going to be again playing for this second Dragon, which is now fully spawned. If you look at the minimap, vision control still slightly in favored for the side of Atlando, but there are a couple wards behind coming out from Nordavind, just positioned and ready, so they will have knowledge of when Atlando moves through.
Just trying to set up a Rift Herald in the mid lane here. Maybe just to open up that mid lane tower, but I think there's going to be an easy response. I think they just threw it down for any old reason right now.
I think timer
yeah,
can be the factor. And also, you don't really want to have Rift Herald on your Lee Sin for long because it limits his ability to use wards to ward hop. But Atlando just going to be able to clear out with no charge coming through, and them having the priority means they can move over to the Dragon. Nita's doing Wolves at the moment.
Yeah, they're just going to lose this Dragon, and we are going to get the changes to Summoner's Rift as the first 2 Dragons of the game has gone down. It's going to be the Ocean, so some extra brushes. But not any major changes to terrain on the map.
No, I feel like Ocean probably changes the least out of any of them. The extra brushes can make a difference to sort of warding spots. It can make a difference if you have a Ring on your team for sure, but for the most part, doesn't change too much in terms of adding or destroying terrain. Really questioning, though, Nordavind's priority there. But now they've actually found Fred, but the mobility of Rakan will keep him safe. It was just, for me, we've seen Nita doing the Wolves. He could have been mid contesting that priority. He could have been looking to fight that Dragon, and instead they just walked off. But Jolbu could be in trouble here.
Yeah, static immediately. Just going to be warded away, though, as Jolbu fights the safety. It's going to be a really nice ultimate. Thor very low. He's going to be looking for the kill for Aesthetic. Jumps in, gets a double kill there. Rumble picking up the extra, and now Jolbu is the target. Andreas trying to save the fight from the back as he jumps in onto Advian. Great Hourglass keeps him safe for now, but Facehurt has come to help protect the rest of the team. That's going to be a missed Sonic Wave, and now it's going to be Andreas trying to clean things up. Again, Nita just warding back and forth. No one willing to commit in this fight, but Andreas flashes in. Chrisberg flashes back. And suddenly they are going to leave it at that.
Andreas doing his best at nearly cleaning up on that team fight, but unable to find it. The big thing there was Wazor didn't even join, gets a tower for free in the first tower on the bot side. We've consistently seen Andreas have a gold lead against him. Being able to get a bit more income into the Gangplank's pocket, definitely favorable in this situation.
Well, Gangplank happy to just sit at the bot lane pushing those waves. Didn't even need to be a part of that fight. Hasn't got his teleport, so couldn't. But again, you'll always have that ultimate ready to affect team fights where possible.
But we did finally see a solid engage come out from Nordavind. They found Thor, the Varus immobile, and even with the flash, there was enough damage coming down from the equalizer that it just burned through his HP pool. When Aesthetic died in, it was just easy cleanup for him. Still looked a little bit messy on the back end, but Nordavind starting to read the limits of their comp and be able to find the aggressive picks. Atlando were dictating the fights earlier. Now Nordavind have started to put the pace back on themselves.
Well, they've finished some key items. You can see that the Andres is there for the Rumble. We've now actually got the Triforce and the Gangplank. We've got an Essence Reaver for the Xayah. So we're starting to see a little bit of a damage boon for them, especially coming towards this mid game where Rumble is going to start to shine.
Yeah, Rumble now level 11 as well. It's a big spike in terms of getting a second point in the ultimate for their extra base damage. Nordavind feeling confident and able just to push out and start to get control of this Rift Herald. That's the next objective on the map. And you can see their vision control is really dominant in this topside river. A lot of control what's going down. They do try and contest this ward, but this brush is extended thanks to the ocean changes, and they don't want to push in too heavily to try and challenge Atlando.
It's a little bit risky when you have no vision of their red side jungle.
Cannon Barrage as well.
Cannon Barrage is about to come up, and they don't have it, but they don't have it for that particular engage.
Yeah, so waiting for that to be available. TP advantages for Andreas, so if they stall this out for a bit longer, they could have Wazor to match with the TP. But right now, Jolbu is looking to go a little bit aggressive here.
Advian jumps in straight onto Thor, gets him on the backline, and Thor immediately going to get locked up, but this is a great response from Atlando, and immediately Chrisberg gets thrown under the bus. Now Facehurt diving onto the Aesthetic. Andreas is going to teleport through. Fred goes down. It's up to Nita to save the day here. I really feel that damage is lacking right now for Nordavind. Chrisberg has been the punching bag for Atlando, but the punching bag continues as Atlando keeps going forward, pushing further. Nita now going down as well, and that is a clean sweep in that team fight. It was all coming up Atlando.
Yeah, and the decision-making, I mean, they decide to keep Wazor in the side lane. He's got a ton of farm, he's getting damage on his tower, but you're not going to win the team fight. Even with the great engage onto Thor, it's not enough to turn things in your favor because Andreas is just so strong on this Aatrox. And as a result, Atlando will win, but they decide to back off. They're not going to look to take the Rift Herald right now. Instead, they reset on the map. They're going to be able to get back, and if you look on the mini-map, you can see dragons spawning. I see it's on the top left, spawning in 50 seconds, so this is the priority. Atlando already have 2. Now, something I always talk about is the third dragon puts a lot of pressure on the other team. If you secure 3 in a row, that means every subsequent dragon the other team has to deny, or they risk giving you that soul. And when you have the likes of a tank Jarvan, of an Aatrox on the other side, that healing can really be impactful in team fights.
All right. Talk to me about this. We talked about how Nordavind had what we assumed was a fairly easy to execute composition. What is not being executed? What's going wrong?
They're starting fights at really awkward windows in which they don't have Wazor there, so it's just going to end up being a 4v5. No matter how easy the composition to execute is, if you're down in numbers, all they have to do is kill Crispig, right? Niter loses a lot of momentum when his ult is no longer available. Rumble's biggest impact is his equalizer, and when Crispig's dead and Niter's without ult, there's not really any momentum to keep Nordavind going. They have now brought Wazor for this fight, so this could be the turning point. They need to deny this dragon away from Atlando, though.
It's getting thrown down pretty quickly. The HP now down to 2,000. Aesthetic's going to have to jump in, gets the steal. That's exactly what they needed, but he goes down and pays for it immediately. I think that is the call for Nordavind just to back out here, as Wazor now going to be the target. I think he's going to be forced to flash if then Advian
Great
uses the
interrupt.
ultimate. That was a really, really good interrupt, but Jolbu finds the engage with the Cataclysm, and suddenly that is a mixing bowl of death as Nordavind get thrown under. But now Atlando, with the safety of the turret, I don't know how much further they can go here.
Yeah, look to overstep a little bit here. This is a dangerous spot, but nothing really come from it. Atlando win out in the numbers, but they do lose that dragon. They're now trying to convert for this mid lane tower. The Wazor's there with a wave clear, as is Crispig. So the tower kept safe, and they deny the dragon from Atlando. So overall, gotta say that's a win for Nordavind, despite them losing 2 members to 1. They're happy with that situation. They can slow the pace down. Dragon's off the table. Baron isn't really gonna be an option in the immediate future.
They've still kept the gold lead, like, almost equal.
Yeah, so Nordavind played that well. They got the steal, they backed away, they managed to disengage, worked out fine. And despite the fact Jolbu got a great Cataclysm, Niter threw his equalizer down inside, and it just meant it not only was it his own team getting sort of churned up, but Jolbu went down very quickly as well, even with the stopwatch.
Right, so let's talk about Atlando, because they seemingly, in terms of team fights, have been winning everything. It hasn't really felt like Nordavind have been competitive on a team fight level. Yet they actually are only 200 gold ahead. How have they not converted any of these advantages?
I think a big thing is the farming difference. So consistently, Atlando are grouping together all their members so that they're able to fight. And that means more waves are being picked up by members of Nordavind. You see, Crispig's got a CS lead, Niter's got a CS lead. Wazor may be down in farm, but he's constantly in the side lane making up the difference when Andreas has to roam to match. Because right now, Andreas doesn't have TP.
I feel like Andreas has extended his CS lead up to 60. I mean, it was at like 20, maybe like 10 minutes ago, maybe?
Yeah, and I think that's a factor, is Andreas is grabbing so much farm when he groups up. So when they all group together, the XP is split, which is a big factor because it was nerfed in the preseason. But also Andreas, with the amount of wave clear he has available, just churns up all the farm. And it means that they're not getting an even distribution. And right now, Thor is down in CS compared to Crispig. He's doing fine because he has the extra kills. But that's why the gold is kept so even to this point. And often in games like this, where the gold is even and Atlando are winning all the team fights, all it's going to take is one big team fight from Nordavind, and it'll skyrocket in their favor. But for now, Andreas looking a little bit aggressive, but he has no TP available. And because of this, I feel like Atlando can't really play aggressive. This Aatrox is a huge part of their team fighting. He's a massive share of their gold, and as a result, until his TP is up, they won't look to contest too hard. And you can see this is played out in the topside river near that Baron. Vision control very much in the favor of Nordavind, because they know if the fight starts, Wazor not only has TP, but the cannon barrage, and so Jolbu can't really walk up.
And Andreas now picks up a turret, making it 2-1. Really only 2 turrets across the entire game had gone down up until this point. Now that will be making it 3 for Andreas. But you're right, Andreas really holding a lot of fun. I mean, we talked about Jolbu having a bit of a slow start, but he has been involved in every single one of the kills that has been set up for Atlando here. Had 100% kill participation. Really feels like he's been the driving force behind a lot of these fights.
He's looked so good, and I criticized his play yesterday, but he has looked really solid on the Java, and he's making things work. For now, though, a reset came in from Nordavind to get some more wards and some item spikes, and that means that now they are back on the map. Yes, Vision was sort of secured by Atlando in the river, but they're going to have to give that up. You can see Thor going for the recall right now, and it means Advian's going to throw down the sweeper. They're going to start to move through and clear out this Vision. And actually, Thor's holding on. So he wanted to recall in that situation, but he wants to stay. He doesn't want to give up all the Vision that Atlando just secured. And more importantly, the threat to the mid tower. They're trying to shove in. It's very low on HP. They might look for a TP from Andreas if they want to defend this. Flank coming in already from Jolbu.
That's going to be a big stun, but it misses. The tower is going to go down. The engage comes in through Advian. They're going to get that ultimate as well, but it's not going to get much done as they actually knock up. Andreas jumps in. He jumps into the backline, doesn't actually get the best knock-up as Chrisberg kites away, and finally Chrisberg is not getting slammed down by the entirety of the Atlando roster, but that's a brilliant stun, and Facer is untouched. And again, in these teamfight situations, Atlando seemingly coming out on top. In the end, though, it's a 2-for-1. Aesthetics somehow kept himself alive. I don't know for how long, though. He's doing some fancy footwork in the red side jungle. I really don't feel like he's going to have long to survive here, though.
I mean, the mobility Lee Sin can stall a lot of time, and Fred has found him here.
Thor's here, sure.
Yeah. Ooh, good. Gets him with the shot.
Nice little snipe.
And importantly, Aesthetic being down for a long time, Dragon spawning in a few seconds. It doesn't mean Atlando are in a good position to take this. However, they're still down Andreas and Jolbu. If Nordavind just fight them here, they might actually be able to find this advantage on the Dragon, but be really cautious around those barrels. But you can see the respawns coming in sooner for Atlando. Nordavind have to back away, and this should be the third Dragon going over to Atlando.
Yeah, I already feel like if you're Aesthetic in that situation, you just die as quickly as possible. I don't think there was many ways he was escaping, like percentage-wise. However, I think regardless of when he died, Atlando probably would have been in the best position to take the Dragon, and it was a really good capitalization for them because that was a very even team fight, actually.
Yeah, it nearly went heavily in Atlando's favor, but Andreas, he had his flash available. He got CC'd by the Nautilus just before his third kill. If he'd been able to flash and land it on Chrisberg and take him out, he would have got a reset on his ultimate, he would have healed a ton of HP back up, and they probably would have just been able to steamroll with that momentum. So very slight thing, but you can see the return of Advian to Nordavind making a big difference in these team fights.
He's super proactive with his engages, though. Speaking of Advian, he is getting targeted here, but I mean, with just the Aurelion Soul, I don't think there's much they can do. Aesthetic is, again, in the red side jungle, being chased around. I feel like a bit of deja vu coming out here. I don't know if his team are going to be able to collapse, but actually, the shutdown comes down to Thor. That's going to be picked up by Razor. They may just trade 1-for-1 in this scenario, as Andreas is doing a lot of zoning. Faceout will pick up the kill, and I think Nordavind will be pretty happy with that situation, realistically picking up the AD carry for jungler.
Yeah, it was good, though, taking the AD carry away. It denies the ability to go for that Baron, and team fighting's rough, but Jolbu could be in trouble again.
I think Jolbu is in trouble again. He fails it as well, and immediately Faceout comes in. That's a really nice stopwatch coming out from Nita to stop the stun, but immediately Andreas jumps in. Huge knockups, huge damage, and Faceout on the back line, but it's Chrisberg. Chrisberg this time is untouched, and finally, he actually has some impact in these fights, and you're looking at Vazor, who is now looking at a really good item spike and doing loads of damage.
Yeah, now that Vazor's joining the team fight, he's doing a ton of work here. They said it's going to respawn sooner, but I don't think they'll go for the Baron right now. But Atlando losing a lot of momentum. You saw in the earlier team fights, the coordination was there. They threatened Chrisberg often, but frequently we're seeing now Chrisberg's just going untouched, and he's able to consistently put down that DPS, set up the feathers, and root the front line. Andreas, his job is being made so much harder by the roots coming in from the Xayah.
I feel like now that you've got Vazor in these team fights, you're starting to see split focus coming out from Atlando. I feel like when Atlando found the flanks, when Atlando were in situations where they dived straight onto Chrisberg and blew him up at the start of the fight, and Vazor was not there, and plus we were looking at early game gangplank, it was much easier for Atlando to sort of, I guess, execute on these team fights. But now that Chrisberg is, I guess, a secondary target almost compared to Nita and Vazor, and because Vazor has joined these fights, Chrisberg is actually able to survive and actually put damage out.
Yeah, if you commit everything to kill Chrisberg when Vazor isn't there, you can often win the fight because Nordavind run out of steam. But with the gangplank, that's not always a sure thing. You'll be looking for a fight.
They're going straight for the Chrisberg again. There is the Featherstorm. How long will it keep him alive for? The answer is not long as Andreas jumps in, but as we said, we have Vazor here now, and Vazor is doing I was going to say a word that I shouldn't say, but a lot of damage with these barrels. However, he misses, and I think Atlando may be able to capitalize here. Andreas is doing such a good job on that front line. Can't quite get the end bit of damage needed, and it is a 1-for-1. They'll have to end up giving up this tower as well.
Yeah, Andreas doing so much work there, and Atlando capitalizing on the lack of flash available for Chrisberg, but you can see the difference. They did manage to take down Chrisberg early, but the turnaround damage was still there, and Vazor kept pumping out DPS throughout the fight, so they didn't really lose steam at any point in that one.
I'm so glad I have you today, Dan, because I am very ill. I need Dan to carry me. That's why my That's why I'm doing the fights. I'm just like chatting absolute rubbish because my brain just isn't working. And I've had to use the cough button more than I've actually had to talk today.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to keep powering through.
And that's what I'm doing. I have the power of love, and I don't know what I bought. It was what did I buy? I went into I don't even know how to say it in Swedish. Apotek? Yeah, there we go. I'm getting some nods from some of the Swedish guys. I went into an apotek and I was like, I have a really bad cold.
You just grabbed your neck like this.
No, actually, luckily...
You grabbed your neck to look like choking, and they went Nordavind?
Well, speaking of choking, Vezor has had to burn his flash already in this team fight. Manages to back out. There's going to be a knockout coming in from Fred. I don't know if Vezor's going to get out here. I almost did. They've ended up trading 0 for 1, just picking up Vezor, but they did have to give up a lot of HP to make that happen. They're still chasing Advian around. He will eventually end up going down here to Thor. In the meantime, though, the equalizer comes through. An easy escape for Fred and for Facehurt. And that should be the 4th dragon of the game and the Dragon Soul giving up here.
Yeah, Aesthetic has to potentially look for the steal if they want to contest this one. Really solid team fight coming out from Atlando, and they got a big shutdown from Vezor to boot. The advantage here was because Crispig and Vezor were grouped together, so much AoE coming out from Facehurt and Dreas could hit both of them, and they essentially just had to both run away from the fight. Right now, Crispig!
That's a yikes, my friend. He has to immediately dive away. Andreas chasing him down. It's a warning. Is that warning bought enough time for Nordavind to rally around this dragon? They are just zoning. They're zoning. They just want to make sure this dragon goes down in their favor, and it will as they dive back over the wall. Andreas jumps in as well.
Oh, caught out by the cannon barrage though. Fred taking a little bit too much damage, and you can see the pings coming out. Nordavind want to go straight to Baron. Atlando, they haven't reset for a while, but it looks like Nordavind, I don't think you can really go for this play. It's going to be a 5v4, but...
It's like a Hail Mary when they don't need to make a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I mean, the illusion definitely going to give a lot of power to Atlando in the team fight. They're still even a goal, but they're just going to start it up. Atlando are coming from base, but none of the DPS are on Baron yet. They're only starting to hit it now. And Jolbu's heading straight over with Smite. It's at 9,000, but dropping pretty fast.
Jolbu's going to have to make a play here. They're going to have to jump straight over the wall. I don't know if they've got enough time to contest properly as he kicks him away. They get the steal. No, they don't get the steal, rather. They actually get the pickup at the Baron, but immediately Jolbu jumps in.
Oh,
Andreas is there as well. Thor on the outside just wailing on Nordavind, and they get minced in the Baron pit. That was a huge mistake for Nordavind, and a 4 versus 5 goes in favor of Atlando.
Yeah, and you saw the play coming off Aesthetic. He jumps over it, kicks Jolbu away to secure the Baron, but the Cataclysm was beautiful. 4 members all together, and Facehurt, the damage coming out from him just decimated them. Atlando crushing these team fights throughout this game. Despite the fact I said Nordavind had ease of execution, Atlando are just pulling it off better. They might look just to end the game. There's 20 seconds on anyone important. This could be it for Atlando.
This looks like they are going to take the win. This is awful for Nordavind if they do indeed go down at this point. Nordavind going 1-3, and Atlando tying them in the league as well. Nordavind need to shape things up in the Nordic League as Atlando look to make yet another upset happen in the Nordic League. They just have to hit the Nexus. They just have to get a few more hits. And it will be Atlando taking down Nordavind. What an upset here. Nordavind, one of the favorites coming into the Nordic League, and they are now 1-3.
That's rough. It felt like they were keeping up in gold. It felt like when they started to bring Vezor into fights, it went favorably, but it just felt like the execution was so much better from Atlando. Andreas looked good again. I think that's something that...
he looked very good.
He looked solid in all of the games, but unfortunately didn't win the previous ones. Facehurt looked like a solid addition. His Aurelion Soul was a force to be reckoned with, but the one I have to praise the most is Jolbu. He had a rough game yesterday on Lee Sin. He picked up the job in here, and he was just so good.
He even had a rough early game.
Huge. I'm actually going to check. Oh, he missed one kill. One kill he didn't have participation on. He's playing this job, and he's consistently finding the engages, and he's a driving force for the team's success. This was what I was hoping to see. There'd been moments of greatness from Jolbu, and they all came together here and delivered a dominant win over Nordavind, and the first win for Atlando. I think that's a big thing to say. They were going 0-3. It wasn't looking good, and they managed to bounce back. So a lot of praise for them. But Nordavind, where do you go from here?
Well, you basically can't drop a game, I think, is essentially where we're at. We're at a situation where if Nordavind want to compete with the top of the table, they probably can't drop that many more games. I mean, you can maybe lose 1 or 2 max the rest of this entire season.
Yeah,
otherwise you're really struggling.
We've already had a quarter of the games, double round robin. I mean, even more slightly because there's only 7 on each side. So there's already been a lot of games played, and Nordavind just
They can still
struggling
probably get into
massively.
playoffs easily, but
Yeah, they only just won that match against Dusty as well. They could have very easily lost that one and they would have been 0-4. And it's just, I mean...
This is the week where you need to now reset as Nordavind. You need to go back to the drawing board. You need to say, something went horrifically wrong over these last 2 weeks. We are good players. Some of the best players individually in this league. What are we doing wrong? Is it draft? Is it the way that we're playing? Is it the way that we work together? Like, there is something going wrong for Nordavind right now.
Yeah, that wasn't draft. I think their draft was fine. I think they came into it with a composition they could execute on. They had tools to deal with Thor and even threaten face hit, and just the execution wasn't there. It feels like they're a little bit lost in the map, scattered as to where they could be, and it facilitates the other team just to go, okay, we're just going to engage at every opportunity.
But yeah, let's not wail on Nordavind and say that they are the reason that this went wrong. Obviously, they didn't play optimally, but Atlando
We're looking good.
That's the first win for Atlando in the Nordic League versus Nordavind. Like, so not only is it their first win this season, but they get the win versus Nordavind as well.
I think 2 weeks ago, that would have held a lot of weight. Even a week ago, after that, because they had a rough week 1, but it was against stern competition. But I feel like now it's like, I mean, it was against Nordavind. I don't want to wail them too much, but I mean, Atlando played well. I've got to praise them. As I said, Jilbu looked really solid, and their team fighting was really stellar. But it's a rough start for Nordavind. That's all I can really say. It's not optimal.
Well, I don't think it is indeed. And now Atlando take that win. That puts them to 1-3, tied with Nordavind at 1-3 themselves. We're going to cut to a quick break. When we're back, we're going to have Dusty taking on Bifrost for the second game of the night.